Hello, this is Christina with the Stage Nature Center. We'll get started here in just a moment. I'm going to give a few more people a chance to sign in with us, and then I'll get started. Hi, this is Christina with the Stage Nature Center, here to do a live program on Facebook about hummingbirds. The Stage Nature Center is located in Troy, Michigan, so I am happy to be here with you guys today. I see some people are checking in from other states, so Kentucky, we have Florida. Hello to everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe and healthy. Again, I'm with the Stage Nature Center here in Troy, Michigan, and I'm doing a hummingbird program for you guys today. Just a few updates on things. Actually, not too much is new, but in case you haven't joined us lately, or this is your first time joining us, our building is now open. We reopened last week, last Tuesday, so the building is open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Tuesday through Friday, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The trails are open as well, and normally we ask people to come through the building to go through the trails, but right now, because we want to give people the opportunity to stay outside and not come into a building if they don't feel comfortable with it, you can access the trails without coming through the building. If you do come into the building, a few things that you'll expect is that we are asking everyone to sign in their name and information, so that way we can keep track of everyone in case there is a case of COVID, but fingers crossed that won't happen. We are also asking everyone who comes into the building to wear a mask. I am in the building right now, but I'm in a separate enclosed space away from everybody, so I don't have my mask on right now, but when I leave this room and open the doors, I will be putting my mask on again. So these are just a few things for everyone to stay safe and healthy. We are doing our live programs, which is really exciting because we haven't been doing our live programs for a few months. And so now we have some things going on. We have a Walk with the Naturalist program this coming Saturday morning. It is a free program, and it's just a chance for you to come out, hang out with one of us naturalists, go out on the trails, and see what we see and talk about what we see. So that's a great way to get on the trails and just explore a little bit. We have other programs coming up as well. So if you go onto our website, stagenaturecenter.org, you can see all the programs that we have coming up. And we are limiting our registrations for those programs to 10 people, again, to keep the group size small, to be safe and healthy. And we are requiring pre-registration for all of our programs, so that way we can make sure that group sizes are controlled. So those are a few things about our programs. We appreciate anybody's donations. We have a donate button here. Lots of people have donated to us over the past few months, and it's been very important to help keep us functioning and keep us going, especially as we haven't been able to do our programs. We are a nonprofit organization that relies very heavily on the fees from our programs to be able to do what we do. So we are been very happy about people supporting us to help us keep going, and also to take care of the animals that we have here, which many of you may have met through our Facebook programs. If you haven't had a chance to see those, you can also go to our website, stagenaturecenter.org, and you can see the previous programs that I've done here on Facebook, which is over 20 now, and a lot of them feature the live animals that we have here in the building. So today we're going to be talking about hummingbirds, and they're one of my favorite animals. I say that a lot about a lot of animals. I realize that. I just love nature in general, but hummingbirds, I'm a bit of a bird nerd, and I say that very proudly. I love birds, and I think they're fascinating, and hummingbirds are definitely one of those fascinating birds. And so we're going to learn a little bit about them today. I have some videos to show you. I've taken some video over the past couple days at our feeders here at the Nature Center, as well as some other videos from other people that have taken some videos of hummingbirds and some photos. The photo that you saw up at the beginning here was a photo taken by a good friend of mine, Dawn Vesna. This is a picture that she's taken of a hummingbird. She's taken so many beautiful pictures of hummingbirds and lots of other birds. I've shared her photos and videos with you all before on here, but that picture was by Dawn. So if you have a question or you want to leave a comment, definitely do that. I am trying to keep track of the comments on another device here, and sometimes it doesn't update. So if I miss your question, I apologize. I will scroll back through these comments after the program is done to see if there were any questions that I missed. So feel free to put your questions and comments up there, and if I don't get to it during the program, I will get to it after the program. So again, today we're here to talk about hummingbirds, and this is not a live hummingbird, but I am going to share it with you. At a nature center, you'll find a lot of things like this. We call them mounts, or also taxidermy, and these allow us to teach people about wildlife. This is a hummingbird that died somehow. I'm not sure the history of this one, but a lot of times people will find animals after they've died, and they bring them to us so that way then we can share them with people like you. Now, just so you know, in order to have a bird like this, or a nest of a bird, or an egg of a bird, or a feather, any part of a bird is highly protected by the government, by federal laws, by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. And it's very important that we follow these regulations because they help to make sure we have birds around for a long time. So in order to have any part of a bird, you have to have a permit from the federal government and sometimes the state government as well that says you are allowed to possess this animal or this part of this bird. So we have permits for all of these things here at the Nature Center. And I just wanted to let you know that because sometimes people aren't aware of that. And this law protects them because years ago it used to be commonplace to kill birds either for their feathers to put in things like hats or so people could more easily paint them and draw them. I mean, can you imagine trying to paint a hummingbird as it's moving around really fast years ago before we had things like photographs and video? But because of that, some of our bird populations went down. So now today we are protecting them, and that's why it's important to follow those regulations. But anyways, so this is a hummingbird here. Here in Michigan, the hummingbird that you're likely to see is the ruby-throated hummingbird. It's the most common hummingbird in Michigan. We have some other species that show up here from time to time that aren't nearly as common, but this is likely the species that you're going to see here. So this is the ruby-throated hummingbird. So it's not the greatest specimen. It's a little rough. We've used it in a lot of programs, but just so you can see it. This is actually a female, and we know it's a female, and you'll see a side-by-side comparison of a female and a male here soon, because the female does not have a dark throat. The male has a dark throat, which is a reddish color, especially when the sunlight hits it. It's this bright, brilliant red. It's really pretty, which you'll see here in some of the videos coming up. So this is a little hummingbird, really small, isn't it? I also want to show you their nest. So I'm going to very carefully take the nest out of the jar here, because they are very delicate. You ready for it? They're so cute. Here is a hummingbird nest. So you can see the size of my hand here, and here's the nest. Very tiny. This doesn't have any eggs in it, but they like to make their nests out of moss and lichen, and they're very small, but they're very, what's the word, kind of squishy, I guess you could say, and stretchy. They're really amazing. And a lot of times we don't see them because they are so small. And just to give you a size comparison, again, we know the hummingbird is really small, but just to give you a size comparison of the nest, this is a hummingbird nest, here's a robin's nest. So quite a bit smaller. Our hummingbirds are very small little birds, which is one reason why we're so fascinated with them, because they're very fast and they can be hard to observe, but they're really neat little birds. So here's a comparison of their nests. And they are nesting right now. I suspect that maybe we have a pair nesting around here near the building. I've been seeing a male and a female who've been coming into the feeders. They'll go away and then they'll come back. So it's possible that they have a nest around here somewhere. I haven't found it. Would love to see it, but they are hard to find because they're so small and so well camouflaged. So those are their nests. And I'm going to put this to the side here and put this back in this jar. We keep it in the jar to protect it because it does fall apart very easily. Remember I said we have permits to keep these because you have to have a permit to collect them. Put them over to the side so I don't accidentally hit them with my hand because I can be kind of clumsy. Okay, so I'm going to switch us now over to the presentation so we can see the photos and the videos. Again, please put your questions and comments up. I'm going to double check here and see if we have any. I see some cute images coming up. All right, so I'm going to switch us over here so we can see the presentation. And of course, please let me know in the comments if for some reason you lose video feed or you can't hear me, so that way I can try to fix that if possible, although it's not always possible. So here is a picture of a ruby-throated hummingbird female. And like I said, that is the species that we're likely to see here in Michigan. There are some other species that pop up from time to time. It's possible to see the Hannah's hummingbird. The rufous hummingbird is another one that's possible to see here. The broad-billed hummingbird and the white-eared hummingbird are some other species that we can see here, but they're not very common. And it's usually during migration that we're going to see them. Maybe they came a little bit far off their range, or maybe resources push them this far. But the one that we're going to see here, especially breeding here, is going to be this ruby-throated hummingbird. Again, this picture is by my good friend Dawn, who I love her hummingbird photographs are amazing. So this is a female. Let me go to another picture here. So you're probably wondering why I'm showing you this, because up close you can probably tell that this is not a hummingbird. But this is a moth that is called the hummingbird moth. And if you've ever seen one of these around your flowers, the way that they move is very fast. They're oftentimes feeding on the same flowers that hummingbirds are feeding on, getting that nectar from them. It can look like a hummingbird. It's about the same size. They do move very quickly. Those wings move very quickly. So they do call it the hummingbird moth. So not to be confused with an actual hummingbird, it's a moth. Here in this picture, you can see the really long mouth part there. It's called the proboscis that they use to lap up the nectar from inside the flowers. Now, in here in just a little bit, we're going to see the tongue of a hummingbird, which is really fascinating. I'm going to show you a few videos so you can see what that looks like. The hummingbirds have a specialized tongue that they use to get nectar, whereas the the moth has this long mouth part called the proboscis, and that's how they get that nectar from inside the flower. So here is the male and the female side by side. So again, the male is on the left-hand side. They have that bright red neck. That neck will look kind of dark. It can look black, it can look brown, depending on how the lighting is hitting it, as you'll see in my videos that I'm going to show you. Sometimes it's not even noticeable that it's red. So if you see one that has a dark neck like this, and you're trying to figure out if it's the male or female, it's probably the male. And then on the right-hand side here is the female. They do have an iridescent greenish color to their back. It's beautiful. Both the male and female have this. But again, it's especially that neck that helps you tell them apart. So what I'm going to show you first here is I have a few minutes of compiled video that I've taken over the past couple days of the hummingbirds coming to the feeders. So we're going to watch this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about hummingbirds while we watch. But it's really difficult to get video of them because of how fast they are. They move their wings extremely fast. The ruby-throated hummingbird beats its wings about 53 times a second. So in 1 second, they beat their wings 53 times, which is just amazing. Hummingbirds have very high metabolism, which is why they need so much sugar to try to keep up with that really high metabolism. So they feed a lot, and this sugar helps them with that. So I think I see somebody said, me too. Yep. So sometimes they take breaks in between when they're getting their food, and one of the hummingbirds had flown over to a tree. Hummingbirds have extremely short legs, which prevent it from walking or hopping. So that's why when you see them land on a tree, usually you're just going to see them sitting there. Now, here in this video, you can see the flashes of red as this hummingbird is turning its head. This is a male. I mostly got the male on video. I had a hard time getting the female on video. But again, you can see how there it was really bright red. Unless the light hits it just right, it looks like a really dark kind of blackish brown color. So again, hummingbirds can't walk. They can perch and they can shuffle a little bit, but otherwise it can't move along a perch very well. They'll actually scratch their head and neck by raising their foot up and over its wings. So they do have really small feet, which you can kind of see in this video here tucked in at the end. And sometimes they will land on the hummingbird feeders and perch, which is really cute. but otherwise they have really small feet. So this is the male again taking a break in between feeding. They actually are a creature of habit. They like to land in the same trees and on the same branches. So if you can figure out where they're going to land, that's often a good way to try to get some video, and that's how I was able to get this video, is I just left the camera on that branch until I knew it was going to land. It took a while, and then I was able to get some video of this little guy. They are, like I said, they are really cute, and it's probably because of their size, but here you can see that really pretty iridescent green on his back. So this is a male, and again, most of the time here when you look at him, you see that his neck is a dark color. So you'll also notice in these videos that these feeders have red on them. Ruby-throated hummingbirds, they prefer to feed on red or orange flowers, although it's not necessarily always the color they're going to feed on. So it's a good idea to have feeders that have bright colors. Here's some video of a hummingbird feeding on some milkweed. Now, I don't know if you saw there at the very beginning that the hummingbird actually went after an insect. Believe it or not, hummingbirds do eat insects. They spend a lot of time feeding on nectar, which gives them a lot of energy, so then they can chase those insects. So that hummingbird did go after an insect in that video, but I don't think it got it. So they do eat insects as well to give them some energy. It's amazing how they can hover in place too, so still to be able to feed. Now, like I said, they're feeding on the milkweed in our monarch garden here right now, and they've been visiting our monarch garden quite a bit. So hummingbirds, they have really good color vision, and they can actually see the ultraviolet spectrum, which we can't see. But that's why it's a good idea when you put feeders out to have bright colors. Although it's very important, and I'm going to stress this again in just a little bit, not to color the food that you put out for the hummingbirds, because that can actually be toxic for them. As long as you have a bright color somewhere on the feeder to attract them, then that works. You don't need to color the nectar, and it's actually very important that you don't, because they have found in recent years that it can be very unhealthy for hummingbirds. So you don't want to do that. Or if you have red hair like I do, I've had people joke with me before that the hummingbirds are attracted to my head because of my hair. I don't know if that's the case, but there have been times before where I have gone out to refill the feeders and I've had the hummingbird come right up to my ear. And I had a coworker tell me once that he thought the ear was like the hole of a flower or that space in a flower. So I don't know if that's the case. I kind of like to think so. At least the red hair has a use for something, right? But anyway, so they are attracted to those bright colors. So this next video is going to show you the hummingbird flying in slow motion. It's going to show you the hummingbird flying, oops. It's going to show you the hummingbird flying first at regular speed and then in slow motion. Now this is not my video. This is a video that I got from YouTube. So here you can see the hummingbird flying at regular speed. Hummingbirds are actually the only birds that can fly backwards. So you'll see how the hummingbird goes up to the flower, then it might back up a little bit, then it goes up closer, then it might back up a little bit. Hummingbirds are the only birds that can do this. The name hummingbird comes from the humming noise that their wings make as they beat, because they beat so fast. So when you're sitting out there watching and listening to these hummingbirds and coming up to the feeders, one of the things that I watch for when I'm trying to get some video and photos is listening for the hum of their wings, because you'll hear them hum right by your head. So here's what it looks like in slow motion. And again, I said that they can flap their wings about 53 times a second. So I'd like to challenge you all and see if you can flap your arms 53 times a second and see how far you get. If you decide to do that, feel free to post it in a comment here on our page. I'm sure we'd all get a good laugh out of that. Now, their tongue is another fascinating thing. Their tongue moves in and out about 13 times per second when they're drinking the nectar in feeders. And they consume about double their body weight of nectar in a day. So again, they have very high metabolism, and so they need to eat a lot. Hummingbirds do migrate, and they are the smallest migrating bird. They don't migrate in flocks like other species. They usually travel alone, but they'll travel for up to 500 miles at a time. So we don't get to see hummingbirds here all year. They do travel south for the winter, and that's one reason why we love them so much, because they're only here part of the year, right? So this next video that I'm going to show you is a video from the University of Connecticut. There is a person talking here, and the reason I'm putting this on here to let them explain it to you is because it's new research that has come out that explains a little bit more about the hummingbird's tongue. And they explain it really well, and they have a really great video here that shows how the hummingbird's tongue works. The University of Connecticut researchers that did this, they examined 18 different hummingbird species throughout the Americas to learn about hummingbird tongues. Now, for many, many years, it was believed that hummingbirds fed in a way by wicking, using a capillary action that allows liquid to flow through small spaces without gravity. But these University of Connecticut researchers found that the wicking theory is actually wrong, and that the bird's tongue actually acts as a tiny pump. So I'm going to play this video here for you.
The hummingbird's tongue is about twice as long as its beak, so it can reach deep into a flower. And until recently, many scientists believed that the birds relied heavily on capillary action to draw the nectar through their tongues and into their mouths. Kind of like water spontaneously rising up a thin straw in a glass. But some fascinating discoveries at the University of Connecticut have shown that the mechanisms involved are much more dynamic than anyone realized.
The hummingbird's tongue is actually a nectar trap equipped with a pair of narrow tubes that taper sharply. The tip of each tube is segmented into a row of flaps that are attached to a supporting rod. When the bird isn't eating, these flaps form two rows of closed loops that fit compactly into the beak. But when the hummingbird feeds, its tongue undergoes a dramatic transformation. Inside the flower, the tongue extends to make contact with the nectar. When immersed in fluid, the tip splits and the flaps on each fork systematically unfurl. Then, as the tongue is withdrawn, the flaps close tightly to seal and capture the nectar for delivery into the bird's mouth. This entire process is executed automatically in less than a 20th of a second, thousands of times a day.
So that is the first video that I'm going to show you about the hummingbird's tongue. I hope you find that as fascinating as I do, and hopefully they were able to explain it a little bit better than I could without those visuals. But it's really quite amazing what they've been able to learn about the tongue of a hummingbird just in recent years compared to what they used to think. This next video that I'm going to show you is also taken from the University of Connecticut, and they're using these first ever high-speed, high-definition videos of hummingbird feeding to research their tongues, and that's how they discovered that 180-year-old theory of how hummingbirds drink nectar is actually false. So the next video that I'm going to show you, or a compilation of videos, shows some slow motion up close video of their tongue. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's try this again. So remember, those tongues are twice the size, or twice the length of their head and their beak, so it really does go out quite far. Now it's really hard to see here, and it would be incredibly hard to see without seeing this video, but look at how the tongue splits there. So remember in that demonstration in the previous video, they showed a graphic on how their tongue split. But you can see the tongue split in these videos, and you can see the liquid go into this kind of tube structure in their tongues, which is really amazing. And then I have one more that I'm going to show you here that demonstrates it again. I'm just really fascinated by their tongues. I don't know how many animals we can say that about, that we're fascinated by their tongues, but the way they feed is just really quite amazing to me. So here's, again, some more video from the University of Connecticut showing them feeding. And you can see that tongue going in and out of the tube there. So we said that hummingbirds, they consume half of their weight in sugar daily. They're not actually that heavy. They weigh about the size of a nickel. So doesn't seem like a lot, but it is for them. Here you can really see the two splits in their tongue, and those tubes open up how they were describing in the previous video. anyways, it's really quite fascinating. So before I go on here, I'm just kind of checking the comments to see if there were any other questions. And again, if I miss your question, I will be sure to go back through and try to answer it after the program. So I talked a little bit about hummingbird feeders, and you can put hanging hummingbird feeders. You saw in the video here that I showed you earlier of the hanging hummingbird feeders that we have that have little ports in them that the hummingbirds stick their tongue into and their beak into. Again, you don't want to put food dye in the nectar because it's bad for them. Now, one thing you can do is you can actually feed hummingbirds from a handheld hummingbird feeder. These are not that expensive. You can get them online at Amazon.com. I have not gotten our hummingbirds here yet at the Nature Center used to it. I tried it last summer, and it takes a lot of time of sitting out there with them and getting them used to people sitting around the feeders and eventually coming up to this handheld feeder. But you can see that this handheld feeder still has a bright reddish top with some yellow to attract the hummingbird. So it takes a lot of hours of sitting near the hummingbird feeders that you put out or the flowers that you have for them and getting them used to it. And then eventually they might come up to your hand like we see in this video here, which is really neat. There was another nature center I worked at that we were able to get the hummingbirds to do this. And I'm going to continue to try here at the Nature Center, at Stage Nature Center. And sometimes they will perch, and it is a good idea to have a perch. A lot of times they're moving when they feed, but to have a hummingbird feeder, it is a good idea to have a perch because they will perch on it as they're feeding to take a break. You can hear the chirping noise that it's making. Now, these are not ruby-throated hummingbirds that we're seeing in this video, but they do make similar sounds. So keep your eyes open in years to come. I will probably try again with the handheld hummingbird feeding here at the Stage Nature Center. But in the meantime, you can come to our Nature Center, to our bird feeding area and see the regular hummingbird feeders that we have up, and the hummingbirds are visiting them. So we talked about how fast their wings beat, and I told you that they have a very high metabolism. One other thing that's also quite amazing about them is that their hearts beat 1,200 beats per minute. That's compared to humans that beat 60 to 100 beats per minute. So just like the wings and your arms, you could try flapping your arms and see if you can get them to flap as fast as a hummingbird wings at 53 times a second. You can also take your heart rate and see what it is compared to a hummingbird. Again, a hummingbird can beat 1,200 beats per minute. So they have very high metabolism, which is why they need all of that sugar. So here's a picture that's really neat. In some areas where people have been feeding hummingbirds for years and they put up hummingbird feeders, you'll see lots and lots of hummingbirds come up to the feeders. We don't have that many hummingbirds, at least currently, coming up to our feeders. But a couple things to keep in mind is that, it's not just about the feeding of from these nectar feeders that will attract them to your yard. It's also about planting native wildflowers that the hummingbirds will feed from, because here at the Nature Center we see them feeding both from the hanging feeders and the flowers. Just like the milkweed, they like bee balm. They also like butterfly weed. Almost a lot of different flowers that you can put in like a monarch garden. hummingbirds will feed from. So, it's a good idea to have native wildflowers around to also feed them, but also keep in mind that you don't want to use pesticides or insecticides because they do eat insects as well, and we don't want to make them sick. So that's something else to keep in mind. So there's a variety of things you can do like that to attract them to your yard. Also, maybe having just a regular water source nearby is not a bad idea, to just provide another source of fluid. And when you're making your sugar water, it's best to use a ratio of 1 to 4. So, a quarter cup of sugar per cup of water. So a ratio of 1 to 4. And that's typically the best ratio to use. Usually you put your hummingbird feeders up during the summertime. You can leave them up during the wintertime. Some people do. Remember I mentioned earlier that our hummingbirds do migrate. But it is possible to see hummingbirds during the winter, especially migrants or accidental species that are from out west might end up here. So you can keep them up during the wintertime. Now, during the summertime, it's very important to keep an eye on them because sugar water can start to go bad really fast and grow mold in it. And that can be also very toxic and deadly for hummingbirds. So it's very important if you're putting up a hummingbird feeder to clean them regularly. If it's really, really hot outside or you're living somewhere that's really hot, like my friends and family from Florida, you're probably wanting to check it, maybe change it out every day because it doesn't take much for them to grow these little bits of mold and stuff, other bacteria and organisms in the feeders. And when you clean the feeders, you need to clean everything. You need to get little brushes and clean the ports where they're feeding from, every nook and cranny, because that stuff can grow and you don't want to make the hummingbirds get sick. In cooler climates, if it's not as hot, if it's like in the 80s, 70s, you can get away with maybe replacing the hummingbird nectar every 2 to 3 days. So it's just something that you really have to keep an eye on. It's a great thing to do to feed hummingbirds and help give them some extra energy, but you don't want to do it to their detriment. So it's very important to keep that in mind. And it's a good idea to place the hummingbird feeders near trees and shrubs where they can perch to rest. Remember I showed you that video earlier where they were perching and resting in between feeding from the hummingbird feeders. And they also like to observe their surroundings from those perches. And then they can also feed on nearby natural food between their visits to the hummingbirds. So again, plants, like we said, right now they're feeding on our common milkweed, bee balm, other plants that are red tube-shaped blooms, such as trumpet vine, jewelweed. These are attractive to hummingbirds. And trees with sap wells that are drilled by sapsuckers, which is a type of woodpecker, is also a good idea to attract hummingbirds to your yard. Now, you want to make sure you set your feeders in the cooler areas of your yard where it has some protection from the wind. Remember I said that heat's going to cause them to grow a lot of stuff in those feeders that can make them very sick. So remember I said that our hummingbirds migrate, and one way you can track their migration is by going to this website, Journey North. You can track a lot of different animals' migration on Journey North, like monarch butterflies, and this helps you to see when to expect them. So when they move south for the winter, if you're trying to figure out when you should put those feeders out, one of the things that I like to do is I watch this map starting in March, and I'll see where the dots are showing up. And as they get closer to Michigan, then I start to realize, okay, it's usually time as early as April to put those feeders out up here in Michigan. But watching this map can help you determine that. And this is a lot of wonderful data. You can help contribute to this by going onto the website and reporting your sightings of the hummingbirds. And it's a lot of great data and information. But Journey North is a great place to learn more about them. And then another thing you can do is join the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, their eBird website. If you're a birder, you probably have already done this, but you can report sightings of any kind of bird you see, and they collect all this data to help keep track of their population. So this is something else great that you can do to help birds such as hummingbirds and help with conservation efforts. It's just by going on, creating an account, you can see where they're seeing birds. That helps you if you like birding, going out and finding where they're being seen at, and also you can report where you've seen them to again help with their conservation. So those are some other things you can do to help them. All right, I'm going to come back to the camera now. Let's see here, hold on one second. And okay, so I think I'm up. All right. I hope you all enjoyed seeing those videos and pictures of hummingbirds and learning a little bit more about them. I'm going to double check my comments here just really quickly. I've been trying to monitor them as they've been coming in, but the connection isn't always very fast, so it's very possible that there were some comments that I did not see. Right now, I'm not seeing any questions that I may have missed. So at the end here, when I sign off, I will go back through and double check the comments to see if there were any questions that I missed. If you guys are wanting to attract hummingbirds to your yard, that now is a great time to still put out those feeders, and you can leave those feeders out through September, October. Like I said, some people even leave the feeders out through winter time for those stragglers or those migrants that may have accidentally come here depending on the weather patterns. So that's something that you can do. Plant some native plants. You don't use insecticides and herbicides because that can be very, very poisonous to wildlife. Have a water source nearby and have some trees and shrubs for them. So these are some things you can do to attract hummingbirds to your yard and enjoy watching them, because they really are quite fascinating to watch, and their antics are a lot of fun. I wasn't able to find a good video to show you guys this, but when the male is courting the female, the female will perch on a branch, and I haven't been able to get video of this either. The female will perch on a branch, and the male will actually hover in flight, but then they'll start to do these U's like this in front of the female, and then they'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's one of the things that they do as part of their mating dance, their courtship dance with the female. And if you can look that up online to see if you can find a good video of that, I highly suggest you do, because it's a lot of fun to watch. And they are also very interactive. You'll hear them kind of chirping at each other. The males will go after each other as well. They're very territorial. So it's really neat to get to experience that. And if you're lucky enough to have a nest around your house, again, they're really small and hard to see. Their eggs are the size of jelly beans, but that's also another really neat thing to be able to see. So I hope you come out to the Nature Center. If you're local, come visit, and you can hang out outside, sit around our benches, and just watch our feeders in the Monarch Way Station area and the gardens to see if you see any hummingbirds around, or just come out and enjoy the trails. Again, we do have some programs coming up, so go to stagenaturecenter.org and you can get more information about that there. And you can also see previous Facebook Live programs. This coming Tuesday is the last live Facebook program that I'll be doing, since we are reopened now and we're doing live programs again. So this coming Tuesday will be the last Facebook Live program that I'll be doing, although I am looking into doing some sort of video blog, something that won't be live, but I'll have the idea is that I'll have some snippets that I can share with you guys. I'm not sure how many times a month I'm going to do this yet. This is a very early stages idea, but the idea is to keep you all connected with the Stage Nature Center and see what is going on here. So it'll feature just highlights of what's happening, and there'll be short little video clips that I'll share with you guys. So keep your eyes on Facebook and on our website for that to be announced, so that way you can keep connected with us, especially if you're not able to make it out here. This coming Tuesday, as the last program, a lot of you know that we have owls here that are rehabilitated and live with us. And the first program I did featured Samantha, our barred owl. Well, I decided that the last live Facebook program that I'll be doing is going to feature a screech owl, one of our rehabilitated owls that we have here. So a lot of people have been wanting to see more of the owls. If you're local, I am doing owl tours, so you can come see and learn about them. Right now, they're not accessed publicly, or they cannot be accessed publicly, so you have to come on one of my tours to see them. We are working on getting a new structure up for them to move into. Fingers crossed, that'll be by the end of this summer. But in the meantime, you can come on our owl tours, or you can meet one of the screech owls next Tuesday at 1 p.m. As part of the last live Facebook program that I'll be doing for the meantime. All right, well, I'm going to double check the questions or comments here one more time, and I'm not seeing any questions. So I hope to see you all on Tuesday. I hope you have, oh, somebody said, is there a chance that you will start doing more Facebook Live features down the road? Definitely a possibility, and we are looking into ways, which is why I might do the video blog. We are looking into ways to keep people connected through our Facebook and online media, because a lot of people really enjoy that, and it's a way for us to be able to stay connected with you. So we are going to be looking into ways of doing that more than we did before. So I guess that's a positive thing, if there is a positive thing about COVID, is that we now see that this would be a great way for us to stay connected with you all. So we'll be looking into that. So watch our Facebook page and our website and for updates on that. Somebody said, will the owls be part of tomorrow's Walk with a Naturalist program? No, they will. They're not usually part of that program. Walk with a Naturalist is a chance to get out on the trails and explore the trails a little bit. The owls are featured in our owl tours, which again, you can see the dates and times for those on our website, stagenaturecenter.org, or our Facebook page here has the dates and times as well. Pre-registration is required right now, and the owl tours fill up fast, and we're only allowing 10 people in them right now. So if you're interested in that, I highly suggest you get on the website and sign up for one of those. All right. Well, again, I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday at 1 p.m. with one of our screech owls. All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye.